All right, I'd like to call to order the April 13, 5:30 workshop. I guess we'll do, we do Pledge of Allegiance or?
Roll call then.
Just roll call then. Go ahead.
Mayor Prieden.
I'm here.
Council President Conley.
Present.
Councilor Blum.
Here.
Councilor Letts.
Here.
Councilor Ross.
All right, first item on the agenda is economic development, but before we do that, we're gonna do an introduction. We have Jacob Smith, our new code compliance officer in the house. Come on up if you don't mind. Yeah, we don't need you, Scott, thank you. Jacob can speak for himself. How many days have you worked so far?
This is day 8.
Day 8, well, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Michael Prieden, the mayor. Have you met everybody up here?
Oh no, I'm missing one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, introduce yourself.
I'm Andrea Blum.
So,
All right.
well, just welcome. Is there anything we can do for you to help you do your job better?
Oh, no, not right now, no.
Okay. If we have addresses of properties we want looked at, we can give them to you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Send them my way.
All right.
What about if they just owe us money?
No,
Well, go easy, go easy, go easy.
he's not an enforcer.
He's already dove into the city code and maybe has some potential policy recommendations
Awesome.
that you
That's
all
good.
can consider in the future to make his job in our code compliance program maybe a little smoother, a little more efficient. So
No, we appreciate you being here, and we do take it seriously. You know, we have a little fun up here at the dive, so we
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
it. Got any questions for us, or?
No, I have a decent background in code enforcement, so I feel, feel ready to go. Already diving in and hoping to get some tools in place to go for that voluntary compliance, and you guys get to steer me in the direction you want the town to go, and I'm ready.
We want it super light and super dark at the same time.
Yeah,
That's what we want.
I've been hearing a lot about lights already, so.
Well, we'll do the best we can and try not to put you in a tough spot, so. All right, well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jacob. We'll be seeing you around. All right, so now the first item on the agenda, economic development for Central Oregon update, and it's Corey and Eric, so.
yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Eric Strobel and let him also introduce himself a bit for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet him or talk with him much, and he can provide a little backstory on, I don't know yet, are we on to 90 days? Maybe not quite.
Not quite.
Yeah, but his first couple months or more on the job here. And then we'll transition into the forgivable loan conversation.
Sounds good.
Great. Councilors, Mayor, thanks for letting me speak today and appreciate the time. Yeah, real quick on just myself, 29 years in Bend. Was also with EDCO from 2004 to 2011 as the Bend director. But that also included Sisters in Lapine, because at the time we didn't have directors in each city. So I took, it was a lot, took all 3 of those and spent quite a bit of time in Sisters. That's when Eileen Stein was, I think it was her last couple of years as city manager, and then worked a little bit with Andrew as well. And we did some really, we had a great business expo at Five Pine that went really well. Had some speakers, and it was great. It was really fun to work in the community. It's changed a lot from 11, which is in a good way, I think. So, and then I went from EDCO to HR and recruitment with BBSI for about 10 years, and left that position last July, and was just kind of enjoying a little bit of a break. And EDCO, Capriel got the position with Business Oregon, and EDCO said, hey, we'd really like someone that could hit the ground running and work, part-time in Sisters. And so that's what I've been doing, meeting with companies, pretty much get everybody so far, and it's great. I mean, you've got 4 pretty big business expansions, that are coming up, which is wonderful, because back in the day when I worked here at Sisters before, an expansion was a move to Redmond. for a sister's business. Lots of them, you know. I mean, the one that hurt the most for me was Sistec, because they still think they live in Sisters, but they had to move to Bend, you know, to expand their business. But now you've got 4 that are just really exciting projects, and more coming, I think. So it's been really fun to meet everybody. It's been very welcoming. You know, you have a really nice diversity, you know, bioscience and health, food, music, brewing, distilling. I mean, you really have a nice section of businesses that I've met. So I've enjoyed it. And thanks for letting me jump in.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Corey, you want to, got you right when you were eating.
No, not a problem.
Perfect.
I might do better, yeah, getting my words right with blueberries in my mouth than otherwise. So as the staff report laid out in the packet, the city back in 2015, through a memorandum of understanding with EDCO, created the Sisters Forgivable Loan Program to support traded sector business expansion or recruitment. And to this point, the city's issued 1 forgivable loan in 2017 to Laird Superfood for the amount of $51,000, and that you all and that loan was actually converted to a grant as they completed all of the agreement requirements back in December of 21. Sort of the crux of the conversation tonight, and looking for some direction from you all, is really on these couple other points in the staff report, and that is that since about 2018, the city's not budgeted any funds for the program, although the MOU mentions that the city should fund the program, otherwise the program doesn't exist. But that's contrary to how we've been operating and the direction that we've gotten. So we talked about this with Cappy and with the SCED board over a year ago to say, hey, let's clarify that. You know, the direction has been, we don't want to budget 10,000 or 50,000 or somewhere in between, but we also want the program to exist if the right opportunity presents itself. And there's nothing wrong with that approach. It's just contrary to what the legally non-binding MOU says. So just in terms of best practice, we should make sure that the MOU mirrors what we want in terms of how we want the loan to operate and how we want to budget or fund the program or any future loans that you all would approve. So in that model, in that process, if we were brought forward a loan for $15,000, the council, we would prepare and council would approve, if you all again wanted to offer and issue the loan, a supplemental budget and a loan agreement, and we would execute it that way, opposed to having put the $15,000 in the budget without even knowing if we were going to have a request for $15,000. Sorry, I'm not trying to belabor that point, just to make it clear. The other component more recently were the discussions that you know, Mayor Prieden and myself and those on the SCED board had in 2021 about the criteria for the loan and the eligibility for receiving a loan, and the request or recommendation from the due diligence committee to say, hey, as it's written, it really isn't accessible to very many businesses. It's too complicated, and it's more cumbersome than it needs to be to accomplish the purpose that we're trying to get out of it. So those were really the two, and you know, Eric's available for questions and answer. I know Mayor Prieden can speak to this a little bit. I know some council members were part of some of the Laird loan issuance. So, you know, there's quite a bit of perspective and context and history here to have a little bit of discussion around, A, do we want to amend the MOU to say, yes, we want to continue with the program and the partnership with EDCO administering the loan, but we don't want to have to budget any funds. And then B, the second part would be the return on investment criteria that's outlined in the program currently. And the recommendation from the due diligence committee was to mirror the county loan program. And Eric could speak more to that too if there's questions. So hopefully that's a good summary of just kind of where we're at and what we need to discuss a little bit and hopefully get some direction on.
Okay, it's wide open then. Because I had a lot of time on the EDCO board there as in the advisory position from council, I obviously have a lot of insight in this. But one of the things I want everybody to think about is, honestly, is do we want to put money in the budget to do so? And if so, you know, does it stay the same amount? Does it grow as a venture fund type thing? Does it, or do we just want to keep it out of the budget and just give out money as requests come in? You know, that's kind of just the way to think about it. So I don't know what you guys think, but I like to be kind of forward thinking about this. You know, I'm a big EDCO supporter. I'd really like to kind of start, I know it's been discussed before, you know, kind of almost like a venture fund loan program where you throw an amount in every year, and if nobody requests it, maybe it grows a little bit. And so when somebody does request it, there could be more, I don't know, you know, 25,000, 50,000 or something. I think that's kind of forward thinking, but I don't know if everybody agrees with that. So I think you all should say what you guys think. You know what I mean? So
I'll jump in.
go ahead.
Many years ago, when we did have a line item budgeted for this, the belief of council at that time and the feeling that was created was, I'm measuring my words here, that funds were offered if a business didn't necessarily need them to set up shop and be successful in Sisters. It seemed as if it was, oh, come, if you think about opening up your business here, we've got 10,000 we'll give you. Not, they needed it to be successful and move here. And that's how that whole complicated, convoluted metrics that you referred to came into being. And that was a disaster, in my opinion. I don't know how anyone, including the people that crafted that, volunteers here in the community, could make sense of it. So then I think when Rick came on board, it became this unspoken agreement that yes, we have funds available. No, we're not going to budget for it. But if there's a business that needs another $10,000 to set up and be successful in Sisters, and that's the only thing holding them back, council could do a supplemental budget. And so that's the direction that we've been in. I think it's worked well. Although I don't like the matrix that were set up, and so I'd really like to get rid of that and just use what Deschutes County has to simplify it. Just that form was overwhelming. And I would have to be really desperate as a business owner to go through the Sisters piece when officially the Deschutes County piece is easier and has a bigger chance of being funded. So that's a historical perspective. I would still prefer keeping it the last 8 years of, if there's a business that you bring to us, ask for it and it'll be a supplemental budget rather than setting aside a line item.
I think we're in a significantly different position than we were when this was initially set up. So I'm not sure that we're in a position where we need to provide incentives. So I don't know that we need to dangle a whole heck of a lot in front of people, but I have the same sense of, if you are approached by companies that just seem to be running a little bit of short, and they would be a good company for Sisters that we would love to have, that we would want you to come to us and say, I've got this, you know. So I would like the flexibility to be able to do that. Is the kind of funding we're talking about, less than $50,000 probably.
It probably will.
Is that something that you feel would be worth messing with? I mean, is that even enough money that it would be something that you would be likely to have in your toolbox that would say, well, I can probably bring this company with that kind of incentive or help? Or is it just something that, really isn't enough to move the dial?
Well, for the size of businesses that would be coming to Sisters or expanding in Sisters and need that help, I think it is enough. The other thing is that, I don't really look at these kind of funding mechanisms as a do or die for a company. It's more of a hey, we want to have some skin in the game with you. Welcome to Sisters. We want to help support what you're doing. I look at it a little bit more like that, rather than, if they don't get that funding, they're not going to do it. That's probably not that typical. Laird being probably an example, but it was really important and special for Laird to get that from the city as hey, we're here with you, we're helping you, we want you to be successful, and that's how I look at this funding. So I think the amount underneath, below 50 is great, and it's really nice for me to be able to say that it exists, because there's not a lot in Oregon compared to other states for us to use to talk to companies. The enterprise zone, which you've got 4 or 5 companies that are on the enterprise zone, and it's a property tax abatement with the state. We just finished that whole round, and that's a great incentive. But that's really it. Then Deschutes County, and then your program. Bend doesn't offer it, and it kind of says we don't care to me. So I think it's really important to have it.
Okay, that's good to hear, because you don't want committees formed and people working on stuff that
Right.
is really not of much given purpose. I agree that the process of determining, how much, and I don't think that's good. I'm not familiar with the county process. So it does have it's much simpler than this. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what the county does is it really puts the dependency on the committee, and that committee is made up of some really great people with expertise. You've got a banker, you have a business couple of business people that have started businesses, that own businesses. I was on the committee for Deschutes County and for Sisters. Being in the HR side, I was always looking at culture and, is the company treating their employees right, that kind of thing. So different perspectives, and that committee is serious about the work. They're not going to let a company through that doesn't have the chops. And we have always felt very obligated and responsible to do good work for either the county or Sisters. And so I think putting it on that committee works really well, instead of the matrix that we were talking about.
And to be clear, that's how the county criteria basically it steers it toward that committee.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the committee presents to the commissioners. So that would be the same as the committee would present to you on their findings. They would have like a 1-pager of what they have found through the interview process, which can be multiple interviews with the company, and then make the decision from there.
Courtney, would that be in a workshop situation, or would that be before a workshop situation?
Well, it could be a little bit of both. I think it depends. I mean, there is, you want, part of why we have the MOU with EDCO is we do want a nonprofit that isn't subject necessarily to the public requirements that we are, working with confidential information. And we want to make sure that separation is there. So you all wouldn't necessarily be privy to all the information, but again, like Eric said, you'd be entrusting the due diligence committee to make a recommendation and provide obviously enough information to assess and evaluate and decide on that. One other real quick thing that I've always been a little hung up on is that Deschutes County has this program, and they get dollars from the state that are dedicated, restricted for economic development, which we do not. And I, in my mind, had kind of been like, well, shouldn't the company be going to Deschutes County first and then coming to us? And talking with Eric, with one of the points he just made, it sort of changed my mind, where it's like, I don't think they necessarily need to go to the county first, but they can't come to us first. And what that means, maybe they go to both of us together, but they can't just come to us and say, well, we're not pursuing the county loan program, we're just pursuing the city. It'd be like, well, if you want to pursue both, go ahead. Or if you want to just pursue the county, go ahead. But you can't just come to us and just ask for our funds without pursuing the county one as well. And the reason why I came around on that was what he mentioned about sort of the skin in the game piece. And it's as much or more about the, hesitate to say partnership, but the support that shows versus just the dollars and cents. So.
Councilor Letts?
Really good discussion. I like everything I'm hearing. I think I had a couple questions or comments. I think, somebody had mentioned, the landscape has changed a little bit, and I personally would like to see existing businesses, be inspired to apply for this versus attracting outside businesses, just because the business climate is challenging right now, and we do have you just listed a lot of amazing businesses in town that we would like them to stay and not go to Redmond or anywhere else. So, if they're, I mean, it's fine, it's open to everyone, but it would be nice if it was. I think that segues into my second point of just, I don't mind if it is something that is just, we don't have a separate fund for, and like Nancy explained. I just want to make sure that people do know about the opportunity. There's just somewhat of a open or equitable way that businesses in town are aware of it. Because if it isn't a line item or something, it kind of does fall off the radar or disappear, and a chance of people not knowing about it, especially when they might be struggling or just have an opportunity to expand or do something really interesting, and they just need that little bit of help. And
Well, that's my job.
Yeah.
That's what I'm up to do.
Right.
Yeah, so you can guarantee you that I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
making sure people know about it, especially expanding. I mean,
Well, and I'm familiar enough with EDCO, it's their policy is move, start, grow. So it's about moving companies here, yes, but it's also about starting companies here right in town, and then also growing companies that are already here. So it's all done simultaneously. It's just that some of the businesses fall in one category and other businesses fall in, that one. So did I sell it right?
that's great.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Yes.
So it sounds like and I'm gonna just say this out loud, and if I'm wrong, you guys just let me know. Sounds like everybody's in agreement with aligning the criteria the same as the county. Does that
Yes.
sound right? And then everybody seems to be on agreement except for me, but I'm actually in agreement as well. I mean, I could have gone either way, which is not setting aside a budget line item. And if we're just gonna be hopeful that people know about the program, and if they want something, they'll talk with EDCO, they'll talk with the city, and then next thing you know, we'll have somebody in front of us looking for that skin in the game partnership with us. So I think that's the head nod, right?
And Eric, is it helpful for you to have a cap, a max number, or an unofficial one? I mean, or should we have one? Because
Yeah, no, I think it's really based on the amount of money per employee. And that's what the county does. It's 2,000 per employee. So that really drives, the amount that the company's after. And like I said, you're not going to have, I mean, a 100-person company. I doubt it. I mean, good, but you're going to have smaller companies. That's, I think, what you'd like to have. And so you're not going to get, up into the 50, 60, 70,000 range.
Okay.
If it happens, we'll talk.
Yeah.
But, and it all works. It'd be great.
And honestly, I think that's probably why we shouldn't cap it, just in case. You never know. I mean, someone might have a special case or whatever, but I mean, we don't want to exclude people right off the bat. Although I think we all admit that it's probably not going to happen, but could.
It could.
Yeah, so.
Does the county criteria give flexibility about the kinds of companies?
Good question.
I mean, if we got jiggle dancers or we got,
Traded sector, right? So,
Yeah, it's a percentage of business outside of the area. That's the key.
so this is targeted towards traded sector.
Correct. Fully.
So tourist industry
No.
is not
Not
even
eligible.
eligible.
It's at 90%
Okay.
outside the area. So, yeah, that's. And then there's one other small difference between the county and the Sisters program as it exists now, is that the Sisters program required that the company keep the jobs that they added for 3 years.
Right.
The county has 1 year, which just makes a lot more common sense to me. 3 years is, I mean, yes, it'd be great, and I know the company would want to keep them for 3 years, but I mean, what we've gone through the last 2 years, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen in this world. So I think the 3 years was, again, a little bit over the top.
That was not a fun
No.
experience.
Yeah.
No.
any thoughts on that, just while we're on?
Well,
on
I
topic?
have a point to make about that. One thing that I know that we did as a local program was we actually had a list of business sectors that we have and want to attract. And I don't know if that's a list that is going to move over from the local program to this new agreement. I think it should. And I think we should kind of target those businesses. It doesn't mean you can't be outside that. It's just that that's kind of what we're shooting for, which is the list has 20 things on it. There was woodworking, there was music, there was the food sector,
Outdoor industry.
outdoor. There was a whole bunch of good things on there, which just fit
Great.
Sisters perfectly.
That's great, yeah.
So I think that, to your point, I think that we should continue to have a target list. Doesn't mean we can't look outside that, but I think that what it does is it shows businesses outside our area that that's kind of what we're looking for if you're going to move here or start something.
Well, and it shows the community too that we're not trying to recruit heavy industry. We're trying to be, we are being specific and targeted and diligent with the types of companies that we're trying to attract, and if it goes through the loan program, invest in to some extent.
And we don't want that to change just because this is changed.
What about if we make some amendments to the MOU and maybe we consider some of these other components, like the number of years for the job piece and the
Targeted industry.
the strategic plan that we'd updated a year and a half ago, and bring that back, for a quicker workshop discussion next month or something, just to revisit it a little bit.
I don't think it would hurt.
With what we've heard today, as kind of the crux of the change. I think more broadly, at some point, probably not at that workshop or for the purposes of this MOU cleanup, but down the road, there probably should be a broader incentives conversation. And I mean, I think one thing Eric mentioned, which we know as well, living in the 21st century, is a lot of investment is occurring not in hiring new people, but investing in automation and things like that. And so I think it's too much for us to try to capture all of that for the purposes of cleaning this up. I think we need to get this to a point where we're comfortable And then we can revisit those conversations 6, 12, 18 months down the road, if or when we think it's appropriate. I mean, we also know that to some extent, we want to have a conversation down the road of potentially reconstituting the SCED program. You know, what does that look like? And so we don't need to get into it all of it today, but we're in a unique situation and timeline, and we need to just make sure that the MOU and what we're communicating to the business community is clear and consistent, and then we can make adjustments further down the road, if that makes sense.
Yes. All right.
Okay, well, we'll work on that. We'll get a draft mocked up, and we'll come back for discussion sometime next month.
Sounds good.
Continue that.
And just a quick wrap up on kind of what I've been seeing. You know, there's a lot of new faces in the trade sector arena in Sisters. A lot of, you know, newer companies, newer CEOs, newer, you know, production managers, all of that kind of thing. And so what I'm really focused on is connecting those people. I'm connecting a lot of, sorry to blow up your email today, Corey. But,
No, you're good.
but I'm connecting a lot of people to Corey and the mayor so I think that's as important as money, is to show interest and to know who's here and what they're doing and why and where they're going, or what that business looks like. So that's been my main focus in the past couple of months, and I'll keep doing that. I mean, linking companies together too. Because what I found when I worked in EDCO before was it was the recession, right? I was at EDCO at the recession, and we were saying, what can we do to help companies? We couldn't do much. So what we did is we formed a consortium for companies to help each other through lean manufacturing and things like that. And that just made a huge impression on me, that companies have the answers. They just need to talk about it, and they need to share. So there'll be a lot more of that going on, as far as events for companies to come together and talk, and, you know, workforce, right? I mean, how do you get people here to work? I mean, what I've seen is that the bigger companies, it's a third and a third and a third, right? A third from Bend, a third from Redmond, and a third from Sisters employees, pretty much across the board. So, you know, those Bend and Redmond employees, if it's snowing, if gas goes up, are they going to come to work, right? I mean, so there's all kinds of different things that we're talking about, and we're going to do a workshop in May and have all the companies come together and talk about things they're doing and ideas to help with that. So
It almost sounds like we planned that transition to the next agenda item.
there you go.
It's all about housing.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks, Eric. And
Thanks.
yeah, if you need me at any lunch, I'm motivated by food. So
Yeah.
just let me know.
Right.
All right, thanks.
And feel free to invite me to being the board member representative too. So.
Absolutely, please.
Great.
Good job.
And I like food too.
Yeah, right. All right, next item,
Yeah, good evening.
update of the housing plan. All right, Scott.
So the goal of the work session tonight is to make sure that you guys understand kind of where the projects are at right now. It's been tracking primarily with the Planning Commission as our community advisory committee, those folks that are kind of charged with reviewing land use. And we've always felt that that was the appropriate group to kind of run these issues through. And so we've had a work session with them already. We're going to have another one on this next Thursday. And you guys are obviously going to be involved later on, and you're going to be the group that's going to hopefully adopt all these measures, the updated housing plan and the recommendations for efficiency measures. So I want to make sure that you guys are kind of tracking along as the Planning Commission is tracking along and understanding all the issues. So I put the two memos that the Planning Commission's reviewed in the packet tonight. I'll start with efficiency measures. The efficiency measures memo basically outlines the various types of efficiency measures that we're going to look at. And so it includes talk about raising minimum densities. You know, we have maximum densities. We don't really have a minimum density. And potentially raising the maximum density so that we're getting higher densities, or allowing higher densities development in the community. Another example is right now in our multifamily residential zone district, single family isn't allowed use, and we're finding that over time, single family uses have been developed more than multifamily uses. So one tool we can use is eliminate single family as an allowed use in the multifamily. It's still allowed in the residential district, but let's use multifamily for multifamily, so we can increase units there. We can take a look at other development standards. We have a minimum lot size for single family units now that in different areas is 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. We can take a look at reducing that minimum lot size, which would yield more lots and more units down the line. So the efficiency measures is all kind of predicated on the housing needs analysis that we undertook with the comp plan that says we need 1,100 housing units. So we're trying to figure out how many of those 1,100 housing units we could possibly spur within existing boundaries before we go down the road of considering an urban growth boundary amendment. It's a step that we're required to do with the state. We can also look at increasing, the types of housing types that are allowed in zone districts. We talked a lot about missing middle housing. Is that something we want to consider? Allowing duplexes and triplexes and fourplexes in neighborhoods that weren't allowed previously. Are there incentives that we can put into place to get people to build more housing in our existing boundaries with density bonuses? Maybe a height incentive if they provide affordable housing, a measure of affordable housing. Would we allow them to go higher with the building in exchange for that? Targeting potential rezoning of non-residential lands. Our housing needs analysis and our economic opportunities analysis, the EOA showed that we had enough commercial land, we have enough industrial land. Our housing needs analysis said we don't have enough residential land. So is there some surplus land out there that's zoned, something else that may be appropriate to rezone to residential? Another tool that we can look at. So these are just examples. It's not an exhaustive list of all the tools we have out there, but it also looks at how we're going to evaluate those things, how we're going to decide what are the most appropriate efficiency measures to adopt. And so in that memo, there are some criteria that we have established to help guide those decisions. How does it measure up against the recently adopted comprehensive plan? How does it comply with the Sisters Country vision? Does it actually yield? How many units does it actually yield? Does it do any good? What are the administrative costs and capacity of it? What are some of the legal risks that we need to be aware of? And then a big one that we need to consider is the level of community support for some of these things. And so we're going to run all these different things through those lenses to make sure that we're applying some rational, review criteria. So it's just not kind of random or subjective. What we're going to review with the Planning Commission is we've taken it to the next step, and we've done an initial evaluation of how many units those different tools might yield, and what are the pros and cons of those things, and what are the legal risks. So the consultants have kind of gone to the steps of taking a look at each one of those and going down the line and kind of applying an assessment of what the support is and what the legal risk is and those kinds of things that we'll start reviewing with the Planning Commission in more detail. And what we're really looking for them is to kind of tell us if we're kind of in the right direction, or some of these non-starters that we should stop focusing on. Are there some things that aren't in there that we should be focusing on more? And so that'll be a major component of next week's work session with the Planning Commission. Before I jump to the housing plan, do you have any questions on that part? Or do you want to wait till the end of?
No, I have a concern. One of the things that I think about when I think of density is all these houses getting smaller and closer together. Has this been looked at in a lens for wildfire resiliency throughout the city? Because it's one of the things that, obviously, the closer we get together, if a fire starts, it's easier to catch other structures on fire too. Is that part of this, or is that something that we do later?
Well, it's part of the I mean, comprehensive plan, there's a whole chapter on mitigation of natural hazards. So it certainly, it would be something that could be subject to that kind of review. I know, just sitting in on Matt and I were sitting on a listening session last, couple days ago with DLCD, and Chief
Yeah,
Johnson was.
I was on that too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Councilor Wentz was.
Because I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah, good, that's right. And so that very question kind of came up is, or do we have some competing goals here in our state planning requirements to increase density for a lot of reasons, affordability, preservation of farmland, but is it leading us into potentially some danger with wildfire? So fair question.
Yeah, I don't expect an answer today. I just want to make sure that we're continually thinking about that, because it's one of the bigger issues that we have, obviously.
Yeah, and it's to some extent, given our geography, as we've said, with either expanding out and that means growth, or getting denser and that means growth, or looking at it through the wildfire perspective, you're either expanding the wildland urban interface potentially and getting closer to areas where wildfire may affect homes, or you're getting denser and that may impact it. So it's a little bit of, the expression that I won't use, that, just you might be in trouble either way a little bit, or just you need to consider it is your point.
And that's
100%.
the only reason, that's mainly why I brought it up, is just so we don't forget about it. It's just a huge issue, so.
Totally.
Thank you. And if you want to talk about it too, you can. Okay. Did you have anything?
I'm saving mine up, I think.
Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
So we'll shift over to the housing plan now. Housing plan, there's a lot of crossover between the two projects. They're all about, both of them are about housing. The housing plan we like to think of as more targeted towards our affordable housing needs than free market needs. So what the housing plan memo that you have in your packet looked at was they first took a look at the housing needs analysis that we did in 2021. It was updated in 21. And that is loaded full of demographic information about what the community is like. And it talks about housing trends, and it uses that information to kind of predict the future, in terms of what our needs are going to be going forward by looking kind of back and looking where we are now. And they were able to use that. I say the consultants, Johnson Economics is helping us out with the housing stuff, and they helped us out with the comprehensive plan. But use that to estimate what our 20-year housing needs are, and by affordability level. So kind of taking that, what we had previously, just saying that we need 1,100 housing units, and a certain percentage are going to be rental, a certain percentage are going to be, for sale units need. Kind of taking a closer look at what kind of affordability levels are we going to be needing to address. And so this chart in the back of the memo is I think the most interesting part of the whole thing, which it starts to break things down into extremely low category income, which is those making less than 24,000, very low income 24 to 40,000, low income 40 to 64, middle income 64 to 96, upper income above 96. And those are categories that a lot of federal and state housing programs use as definitions. So it's good to kind of keep with those, but it kind of breaks it down into how many units we're going to need in those different categories, and that's going to help inform, the work that Corey and I are doing in terms of targeting, the needs, the real needs, making sure that it's meeting, our true needs. And this chart also talks about the types of housing units that would be appropriate for those different categories. If it's lower, is generally more rental units, and then as you get a little farther down the line, it kind of transitions into for sale units are the most, common, but definitely a combination of the two. And so that's the extent of the memo that you guys have. What we're going to review with the Planning Commission is this memo, and you guys will all have access to this once we get the packet ready for the Planning Commission tomorrow. But it goes into more detail. It's kind of an initial review of what strategies can we put into place to get the housing we need. And as you guys know, there are a wide variety of different tools the community could put into play to arrive at that goal. Some are more appropriate for sisters, some may not be appropriate for sisters, but the idea at this level is to make sure we cast the net wide, to make sure that we're looking at all the possible tools. And I won't go into detail, but the broad categories are zoning and code changes that we could put into place, to help stimulate housing, reducing regulatory impediments. We talked about rezoning some land that may be a regulatory impediment. Annexation and development agreements. Corey's talked a lot about looking at our annexation criteria for the future, that want to make sure that housing is a component in those agreements. So we know the expectation going forward for everybody is known how much affordable housing or percentage of affordable housing we might require of a development that annexes into the city. That's a tool that a lot of communities are using. I think City of Bend uses it as a tool for annexation. What financial incentives can we put into place, such as SDC deferrals, exemptions or reductions is a tool that we could look at. Financial resources, general obligation bonds for affordable housing, tax increment financing, which we already use in our urban renewal area for housing. Tax exemptions and abatements are a tool. Then land acquisition, lease, and partnerships, public-private partnerships. You've seen a lot of those occur around the area, where it's maybe a public entity selling some surplus land for less than market value for affordable housing developers to develop. So those are the things we're going to start reviewing with the Planning Commission next week. Is there any questions that I can answer relative to the housing plan?
I'll go last.
We'll go last.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, well, I have a bunch of questions, so I'll try to go fast, and they have nothing to do with each other. First of all, I noticed that most of the data in here was probably the best, most recent was from like 2019, and the world's gotten funky since 2019, so are you and the team relatively comfortable using those numbers? Do we feel like they're good enough?
Yeah, I mean, the housing plan or the housing needs analysis, which a lot of this data should have, we did an initial 2019 housing needs analysis, and then with the comprehensive plan, we updated the housing needs analysis, so those numbers should be, are you seeing some numbers that are?
Oh, I just some, everything's
Some are
gone
2019,
a little wonky since 2019. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that's in the back of everybody's minds when they're looking at all this stuff, but I just want to make sure it's being kind of taken into consideration.
Well, you're absolutely right. I was looking at the same thing in the sense of, I bought my home in 2014. And by that period of time, housing prices were kind of the same. Well, now they're completely different. So it is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we're using as up-to-date numbers as we can on this.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that this is some weird little bump and prices will come back down a little bit, but I don't know, I just plan for the worst, I guess. Hope for the best. In the part, you're looking at different types of incentives, is this process talking to any builders or developers about their opinions on that? And I bring that up because I was privy to a conversation with a developer that has worked a lot in Central Oregon, and I was kind of shocked to hear that he felt that working in Sisters was the worst community to work in, even worse than Bend, which everybody kind of says, oh, Bend's so hard,
right
permitting and all that, and it wasn't so much the people at the city or anything. They just felt the process, the regulations, the asks were just a little out of line compared to everywhere else in Central Oregon. So I just want to, it's a tough pill to swallow, but it was I needed to hear that, so I just wanted to know if that was part of the process of reaching out to those, you
Yeah,
know,
I'm glad
that,
you-
that sector.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one exercise that the consultants have done since the last work session with the planning commission and what we're going to talk about next Thursday, they were able to conduct 6 stakeholder interviews with folks to get feedback like that, with affordable housing developers, with free market developers, with local architects in town who's done a lot of work and has done a lot of, was able to share is going to be able to share some of his pro formas on projects that kind of illustrate what the challenges are with our zoning requirements in terms of getting projects done. And we talked, we talked also with Charlene from Habitat for Humanity, Hayden Homes, Core Land Trust, which is an affordable housing developer that does mostly work in Bend, Housing Works, and then Kevin Eckert with Build Architects, and I think they're trying to contact one more. And so get a lot of great feedback from them.
Okay, I did see that in there were stakeholders, it just wasn't defined, so that's good
what
to
that
hear.
was, yeah.
Okay. How many houses off the top of your head, or units, I should say, do you think we have in the pipeline already, between the Woodlands and, the project of across from East Portal and
No, probably on the order of 400 to 500 units, maybe.
okay.
Yeah.
It's significant.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, we don't, those are, I guess, have entitlements, right? Approved land use decisions. When you say in the pipeline, when are those going to be delivered?
Right. I mean, I'm
Don't
looking
know.
at the 20 years, out to 2041. So
Sure.
just for my brain, it's just getting that percentage of things that are already kind of
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
at some point in the process. And then I just had one comment about, sorry, I'm taking up so much time. Just in the housing plan, using the current percentage of second homes and STRs as short-term rentals is kind of a given. And is that something that, is being looked at as something to address, as well as a percentage that can be manipulated and it maybe should be manipulated?
Certainly could be added to the list in terms of preservation of housing for long-term rental. Is that kind of the perspective that you're?
Yeah, because it just, it was, saying that, oh, this is the percentage, and so I didn't want it to be necessarily
I think it's kind of
used as a baseline that it was going to continue, because I thought, well, that's something that, we really need to be looking at to see if we need to maybe reduce that number if we continue to have this housing crisis.
Yeah.
So you weren't considering barring people from having a second home here, huh?
No, but
there was 2 parts to that, so I wasn't sure.
and there are things that could be done to make sure that, their presence here is aiding the community and not hurting it. So, okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't feel like you take too much time. I mean,
Well, I'm watching the
Although
clock.
Yeah.
we are running a little
Yeah.
short, so.
well,
Andrew, you got a
we
couple
can continue
questions?
on. Looking through this, I struggled with some of the concepts in the sense of the mean, the median, the average, and the average mean. And so there's, maybe some clarification. When we say mean, are we meaning the median? Are those two interchangeable, or are they different?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay, so, yeah,
I can-
so there's a little, because I think that using the mean, in a lot of people's perception, they think of that as the average. And that's not, it's way, way, way different than the average. And so we have to keep those perspectives that in some statistics, we're talking average, in some statistics, we're talking mean. And so they don't always twine in together. The next thing that I feel like we have to grapple with is that we really are the rich and the poor. We have so many categories of people that live here that could not afford even remotely to pay, new apartment rates. And so do we build for who wants to move here, who's already here, or those that we would like to be able to be here because they work here? I mean, there's a real philosophical thing here that the statistics, do we follow the statistics, or do we, how do we merge the difference between what the vision wants and what the statistics are telling us? And so that's the hard part to grapple with.
Right.
And so I'm assuming there's going to be huge wisdom amongst the planning commissioners, and they're going to be able to sort through this and come up with some miraculous ideas.
Yeah. I don't think the numbers right now distinguish between that necessarily. Just kind of using past to predict the future in terms of, the number of people that are going to be in those categories and needing housing. Some will be new, some will be already living here, and yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer for it, but
Yeah.
kind of.
No real questions, just sort of.
I just have random thoughts too, with a few questions. I agree with Andrea, looking at the income projections and what 30% of your salary paying for housing costs look at. I couldn't afford to live here. We're middle class, and there's no way we could move here and buy a house. And that just is gut-wrenching to me, knowing that my kids, unless I die, will never be able to live here. And so I don't know how we address that. Like Andrea said, it's the have and the have-nots. So that's my comment for that. And then my random thoughts are, I read an article in the San Francisco paper recently where they did an overlay about their planning, where you could build a multifamily duplex, quadruplex, whatever, on your existing lot if it was big enough and it had a huge impact in neighborhoods. For efficiency measures, that would be allowed, potentially.
Could be.
Right. And so public comments and outreach, the direct mail piece that we had, the email link on the city website, I think there was an ad in the paper. What other outreach do we have planned to make sure people understand all the options that are out there?
We have talked about doing some, having a community outreach component to this. That's yet to be completely defined. I mean, the steps that you've mentioned there just a few seconds ago are the primary ones. We talked about having some open house opportunities, maybe some surveys, kind of using some techniques that we used in the comprehensive plan that were effective, maybe doing some activities or tabling at community events. Just continuing to put the word out as much as we can. If you guys have some suggestions on some good tools, we're all ears. It's sometimes tough to get folks involved at this stage of the game, but we'll continue those efforts.
The direct mail piece was fabulous, by the way.
Good, I'm glad that helped.
Town crier, maybe?
Yeah, there you go.
The mayor?
Yeah.
Mayor with a big bell?
Too busy, sorry. Voice.
Jennifer had mentioned that the requirements that we put on a master plan, maybe not even a master plan, but for example, the storage units that we're talking about, if you're multi-family residential or apartments, that there be a storage component, drainage, screening, open space. I think that drives up the costs and the requirements that the developers are resisting and maybe commenting to you about. And so how do you equate that livability with the cost of actually living here? And I just bring that up because I think we need to have a rebuttal in place about why we're not giving you just a bare bones cookie cutter 3-story apartment, and why we're requiring or asking in the future for storage or more landscaping. And I don't know how you address that in this discussion that you're having.
That's a good point. And we talked to the chair of the planning commission this morning. That's something he raised as well, just to have kind of some support for why this is a good thing. We think it's a good thing, and why I mentioned that I would talk to some developers in Redmond that I know have incorporated this kind of stuff, and to see if it even made I never got some anecdotal kind of feedback. I never got any pushback when we applied that requirement to projects in Redmond. It was just such a tiny little issue compared to the grand scheme of what they're doing, that I don't think it's going to raise costs one bit, and nobody's going to scoff at it, but it's something I'll look into just to make sure.
And then just my last comment is, along with what Jennifer said about the short-term rentals, the efficiency measures with the overlay, is there I don't remember the requirements for the distancing. Is there an overlay in the commercial area, or is it a free-for-all? So there could be all kinds of short-term rentals in the downtown commercial.
That's my understanding, is that there's no buffer requirement in the downtown. The buffer requirement is for multifamily and residential zoned areas. Yeah.
And will that be addressed? And
it certainly could be, yeah. That's, I think, along the lines of what Councilor Latz was just mentioning. If that's something that you guys kind of recommend we add to the list, then we'll definitely look at it.
Okay. And then once, I'm going to pick on Woodlands, it's been master planned, but any of these changes that Planning Commission is looking at now would be superimposed on their coming back, the Woodlands coming back for a final plan.
Yeah, they have master plan approval and subdivision approval, but the 2 multifamily parcels that they designated need site plan approval. So if that came in after the code amendment was adopted, then they would be subject to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. That was it.
Yep.
Okay. For sake of brevity, I think you guys covered it pretty good. What's next step? What do you need from us now, today?
Nothing from you now. I think I got some good feedback there, and just we'll continue to. I'll continue to come back from maybe another couple months to give you another update, or as part of my staff comments, I'll continue to give you an update on the process and how the Planning Commission is doing on these. If the packet will be available with the information that I'm sending out to them tomorrow on our website, or if you're interested, let me know, and I can share that information with you.
I think it'd be probably a good idea just to share it with everybody on council, just right off the top, because it's such a big topic that would be great if you could.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right.
All right, I'm going to adjourn this, and we're going to take a 5-6 minute break for. All right, I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, April 13, 2022, 6:30 regular city council meeting. Let's please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everybody. Roll call, Carrie.
Mayor Preden,
I am here.
Council President Conley,
Here.
Councilor Blum,
Here.
Councilor Letts,
Here.
Councilor Ross.
Hello. All right. Good to hear you, Gary. Before we get to approval of the agenda, we need to amend the consent agenda to remove the joint meeting minutes and add it to council business item B. So when someone makes a motion to approve the agenda, they need to state that. Is that correct?
Just that the agenda has been amended.
Okay.
So moved.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second for the approval of an amended agenda. Is that a roll call vote or?
Mayor
Okay.
Frieden,
Aye.
Council President Conley,
Aye.
Councilor Blum,
aye.
Councilor Letts,
Aye.
Councilor Ross.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Next item is visitor communication. Do we have visitor communication?
We do. Michael has had a form put in.
Michael? Come on up. Thank you for being here.
Gary Ross isn't here. Gary. You already know what I'm looking for and why I'm here.
I'm sorry?
You already know why I'm here and what I'm looking for, right?
It could be different from last time, so why don't you go ahead?
It's the same. And I don't have my phone on all the time because I'm not in the type of health that can have it on all the time. I have to shut down. As I think you heard me say last time, I shouldn't even be talking here. It's required, but I shouldn't be doing it. It's destructive to me. And I just scratched this afternoon because I have to say something. Before last time speaking here, Mayor Michael Pradine thanked all in attendance for standing for the national anthem. I, being the only person this last time, other than council members or city employees, figured plausibly it was stated as reference to myself. Any flag is a flag, standing is tradition. Older and or disabled people sometimes do not stand, and some for different reasons, including civil disobedience in which they may kneel. There would be good reasons for myself to kneel, though I'm not here to do this. I'm not here to jump into that ocean. I'm here for what's very basic for my immediate physical survival. If I had been an ambassador or a statesman, I would follow the basic tradition of other countries. This includes Russia, past, yes, even present, standing to their flag when in company with them. Do I like ruthless killing and pillaging? No. By others, and most particularly by the country I was born at, when it allows, will even support those who do it when it may fit their global curriculum. Even when, in truth, it's counterproductive, while destructive to its inhabitants, their tradition, its infrastructure and homeland, paradoxically requiring immigration overload amongst many other very horrific stories, which when cared about is used by most of this populace to write and talk, perhaps pray, perhaps get involved, perhaps be in philanthropic, etc. Replacing being a real human to someone perhaps right in front of you. The story is as old as God, though my God is very different than yours. I would die every day if I were like you and yours. Though I approach this secularly, which some Christians and other non-God-following Americans do in daily activity. As you have heard, this does not help in my case. Unless you believe those who offer psychotropic drugs for what they believe is poor behavior and or delusions is for I mean their and your benefit. Or if you believe those who offer brewed and delivered beer, and I should buy a 6-pack by midday every day, drink it while hiding in the alley. Though you would understandably prefer not in this city, another one, and some humanitarian could give me a one-way ticket out of town. But I'm not looking for a one-way ticket out of town. I know my way out of town. There's a problem here. And I want to contact with that person. I like to talk to her for 5 minutes to get the point across. And I'll make sure it's important to know. I shouldn't have ever done this. This is destructive when I'm not doing a lot of things I should be doing.
Thank you for your comments, Michael. All right. There's no other visitor communication. We'll move to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Council President Conley.
Aye.
Councilor Blum.
Aye.
Councilor Letts.
Aye.
Councilor Ross.
Aye. Sorry for the roll call.
Okay. All right, Gary, thanks anyway. On to council business. Item A, discussion and consideration of a motion to approve a public improvement contract. Paul, good evening, sir.
Okay, it's road construction season. So this contract is for pavement overlays for our 2022 road maintenance program, and it includes a portion of South Pine Meadow Street, a portion of South Rope Street, East Timber Pine Drive, and West Jefferson Avenue from South Pine Meadow Street to Pine Street. And then lastly, South Birch Street from Hope Avenue to St. Helens. So we received 3 bids. Knife River was the lowest bid. We're looking at overlay prices that are about 30% higher than last year, largely due to cost of oil, cost of labor, trucking, and pretty much all the above. So we don't want to prolong doing the overlays. They hit the mark to be overlaid in our pavement maintenance plan, and we feel like kicking those down the road is just going to be more costly in the future. So that's why we're recommending to approve the overlay contract, and then we'll have to come back with finance to do a supplement budget, more than likely towards just the end of the fiscal year. So if there's any questions, more than happy to dive in.
Does anybody have any questions for Paul?
I do. So the multi-use path also came in way over budget, and is this a new norm? And so the city engineer will now take what he thinks and add another 100,000 on?
We're now doing budget estimating using today's dollars. You know, obviously when we budgeted last year, we used last year's dollars. So yeah, and that's trending up.
Okay.
Yep.
Right, thank you.
I noticed on the bidding, Knife River had the most diverse prices on the different
They did.
categories.
Mhm.
It obviously helped them with their getting the low bid. They're not too far out of line on a couple of those lower categories, are they? Do you think? Or
No, and I don't know the rhyme or reason why they ended up being so low on like the grind and inlay, which is, you know, just more involved.
Yeah.
But maybe they liked just the big, long, straight stretch, night work. You know, Knife River likes night work, so it's hard to say.
Just interesting looking at the package. I don't have any other questions. Anybody else?
I move to award a public improvement contract to Knife River Corporation Northwest in an amount not to exceed $304,986.60 for the 2022 pavement maintenance project, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and any necessary contract change orders and/or amendments within a contract contingency amount of 5% of the contract.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll need a roll call vote.
Mayor Breeden?
Aye.
Council President Conley?
Aye.
Counselor Blum?
Aye.
Counselor Letts?
Aye.
Counselor Ross?
Aye.
Thank you. So moved.
Great, thank you.
Hey, awesome job as always. All right, we have a new item B, a discussion about amending the minutes of our joint meeting with the county commissioners. And Counselor Letts, you requested that change, so I'll give you the floor.
Okay, I wrote it down in an email to Carrie, so I
you
could
want
probably pull that up. I don't have it there, but thank you. Basically, I just remembered one part of the conversation we had during that meeting near the end where I asked the county if they had any plans or interest in having like a county parks department, and used Creekside Campground as an example of a great project, municipal civic project that provided a lot of, recreational opportunity and also kind of a funding stream. And I recall Commissioner Chang saying that he had had a conversation with, I think, Central Oregon Trail Alliance, maybe about a property on the north end of Bend that Deschutes County owns, that they were chatting about maybe doing something with that property. So I just wanted that included in there, because I felt like that was of note, and we spent, probably about 5 minutes on that, I think, discussing that. So just want to make sure it was in there.
Okay. I remember the conversation, so I am in support of it being added.
What date was that meeting?
March 9th.
So we need a motion for that?
So you can choose to have a motion to, so I would put in what Counselor Letts has just spoken about, or you can make a motion for me to resubmit the minutes at the next meeting.
I move to have the Board of County Commissioner joint meeting with the Sister City Council minutes of March 9th resubmitted by the city recorder.
I second.
You have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Carrie?
Mayor Breeden?
Aye.
Council President Conley?
Aye.
Counselor Blum?
Aye.
Counselor Letts?
Aye.
Counselor Ross?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Great. On to other business. Update on the formation of a new DMO.
Nothing too specific or substantive to share, other than we're on track with the timeline that we've established over the next 6 months. And this month is really all about looking at draft bylaws and purpose and high-level mission, board composition for the new nonprofit that you all will be considering approving and creating in the next couple of months. And again, those formative documents are a starting place. They're not etched in granite. So that organization itself, in the winter, next spring, or later or never, could amend those as they saw fit and appropriate. So we're just trying to make sure that we get the right foundational documents and enough framework to get them started and set in the right direction. And then again, they'll really be the captains of that ship once it is theirs officially. So I think, I can't remember if it was the 27th of this month or the first meeting in May. I mean, we're working with legal. We have a meeting tomorrow afternoon, or Friday afternoon, actually, with legal to review some of those revised bylaws and sort of put it in their court. Jeremy mentioned that at our last meeting. And then we'll be bringing that back in the coming weeks or early next month at the latest for some consideration for council to discuss and look at taking next steps. So any questions, comments?
Have you talked to Eric Strobel about the DMO and how he might interact with that organization?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, he's aware of that. And there's actually a line in the amended agreement with EDCO that alluded to that work of destination management and the transition that we're all going to be going through. But more and more, one of the things that's dawned on staff for sure is that it's better for us to get this to a point where they are operational and then let them form those relationships and have those conversations about new partnerships. And we'll be involved in that, of course, but not trying to be, the total puppet master, more of a partner of that organization or of all those organizations, right? We're partnering with EDCO, we're partnering with the new DMO, we're partnering with Deschutes County Sheriff's Office and others. So more that will come later, I guess, more through that process, opposed to kind of upfront and trying to predict. So,
And I think our role can certainly be facilitator and encouragement and all that at the same time, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not lost on Eric. I mean, we're putting an ad, co-supported, half paid for by the city, half paid for by EDCO in the Sisters Guide, because we know that not all, but a lot of people that have moved here or have moved to business here, first were visitors, right? And so we know that that's a key strategy. That's not lost on us. So I think, he's aware of that, but in terms of new partnerships or new programs or whatnot, that'll just have to come in the fall and beyond.
Yeah, as he was talking and Michael was talking about listing the kinds of businesses that we would like to encourage to come here. And I thought, well, the DMO is, going to hopefully have a good say in what kind of businesses we need to round things out, because we're just sort of throwing darts at a wall, other than Michael, who's, works with folks. It's nice. It's going to be so wonderful to have a partner, an organization that actually can give feedback about what the business community needs and wants, and to make whatever efforts and funding that we have available at the time be meaningful and, serve a true purpose. That will be great.
Definitely.
Brian, any other comments?
Councilor Conley has been involved in several meetings as well. And so, I think probably the most appropriate thing is to keep working in that capacity and not necessarily sharing every detail here. But if any of you would like, we are planning additional conversations, so you'll continue to hear and learn more. I think I've spoken to all of you about this in the last 2.5 days, even before leading up to this meeting. So we're on track, we're moving forward. As you all know too, the April 27th meeting on the workshop will have an agenda item considering what contract or grant agreement you all might want to put in place with the Chamber of Commerce as we head through this transition. So I'd say that's the most immediate conversation for council over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll be further along with some of the DMO conversation as well as we head through May.
It's exciting work.
Mhm.
Thank you for the update. All right, so the next item on the agenda is staff comments. Courtney, you want to lead us off this time? Usually I leave you for last. I can leave you for last again if you want.
Yeah, the only reason why I like that is
You can fill in the gaps.
yeah, it gives staff an opportunity to talk about things
All
that
right.
they're working on and excited about. I don't like stealing their thunder.
All
because
right.
They're leading the charge on pretty much all this.
All right, I got Carrie up first then.
All right, so I have a lot of dates for you right now. So I'm gonna go through the list.
I'm married though.
And I will send out, some of these don't have invitations yet, but you'll get them. So April 29th is the Arbor Day celebration that will be here at City Hall. I will send out a flyer on that tomorrow. It's at 10 o'clock and we're working, Emmy and crew has been working with the Montessori preschool on that. On June 16th, we have tentatively planned a joint planning commission meeting. You might have saw that on the tentative agenda I sent out last week, and that will be at the regularly scheduled planning commission. And Scott has more information on that. June 21st or 23rd, dependent upon feedback from you and from the vision group. You spoke at the last meeting about wanting a community celebration, kind of a regroup. Amazingly enough, the next morning in my inbox was a note from Jane Paxson of C4C about the vision celebration. And we thought we would partner up together for that. So we are looking at in Creekside Park, a community celebration that celebrates both the city and the vision because those projects all ride hand in hand. And just a quick looking at your schedules, and then maybe I'll send out an email tomorrow. The 21st, I think, is going to work better for the vision group, but the 23rd was our initial date. So if anybody has any issues, it would probably be from about 4 to 6. So kind of a late afternoon. June 24th is on your calendars, I hope, at 9 in the morning for budget meeting. Sorry, Joe, I'm taking your thunder. With the second one, if we need it on, not June 24th, I'm sorry. I got that wrong, May 24th.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was going way out there. And then, right, getting there, Joe, I should have let you do it. And then May 25th, if we need a second meeting, will be prior to the council meeting that night. And the ballot box opens, if people are asking, because they are going into election season again on April 29th. And then Paul, I'm gonna put this out there, I may be stealing Paul's thunder too. We are looking at a well for ribbon cutting ceremony. The date we have out there right now that Chris Converse can make is May 5th, and that would be a kind of a mid-afternoon event. And we'll have more information on that. But unless I hear otherwise on a couple of those things, community celebration and the ribbon cutting, we'll move forward with those. And there's a lot more going on, but I just had a lot of dates for this week. Any questions?
429, 55, 524, 66, 621, or 23.
And most of you have invitations already in your Outlook on some of those, so.
Yeah. Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. I think Corey was going to bring up everything that I had, so. So just a couple quick things. The first one is obviously budget season, been working with staff, been updating projections and worksheets and all that kind of stuff to get ready for the meeting. So staff has been very welcoming of that, which is great. But that is going to be a big point of focus here for the next month, of course. Campground operations. So I think last time I reported we had one set of camp hosts in place. We just got another set put in place today, actually. So we'll have 2 sets of camp hosts. One of them is brand new. The other one's been there for a year. So we have a good mix there, I think. And we both really like these people. So we think they're all going to do great jobs.
Does that cover you for the whole year? Cover us for the whole season?
For now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as you know.
With new people, yeah, they promise a lot. We've had we've had people not keep those promises, I guess. And then one lighter note, and this is kind of just a finance department kind of oddity, but our staff accountant Kim Keaton has got, I think for the 3rd year in a row, kind of a purse for reporting excellence. She has reported on time and correctly for the last, I think, at least 3 or 4 years, every single pay period, which is difficult. You have to separate all the payroll registers with dates and gross pay and different employees that are in different tiers and things like that. So it's actually kind of complicated, but kind of a neat award to receive. So just wanted to kind of give her a little bit of kudos on that. Just the little things for finance, it takes a lot of time.
Well, if we see her, we'll give her congratulations.
You should, yeah.
Yeah.
Should. So that's about all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
I do. Last year, when my daily walks through the campground, when I noticed things that weren't right, I didn't address them. This year, if I see things aren't right, who would I address my issues to? I'm talking about the red pair of underwear that were in the trail for 6 days.
Oh, yeah, our camp hosts, I mean, if it's something I would use, defer to your judgment on that. If it's something the camp hosts can take care of,
Yeah.
I think it's fine to chat with them a little bit. Or of course, Paul and I and Julie to an extent, kind of all tag team operations there. And one of the initiatives this year is to kind of manage the camp host time a little bit better. We've got a little bit of feedback in the past that for people that want a limited amount of a work day, for lack of a better phrase, it can be long. You can make as much work for you as you can at the campground. So we're just trying to be mindful of all their duties. So there might be a camp host off duty, for a couple hours, maybe between the morning and the checkout, things like that. So if that's the case, then feel free to contact one of us.
Like general cleanliness or anything like that?
Again, camp host or either one of us.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
That was for Gary's benefit.
All right. Anybody else? Gary? Okay,
No comments. Thank you.
thanks, Gary.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Scott, you're up next, buddy. I hope you guys don't mind that I use your first names. If you do, just let me know. If you want to be addressed by your titles or your last
No
name.
problem, Mr. Breeden.
Okay. Sorry, I get a little casual sometimes. We'll I should.
That's okay. It's okay with me.
Okay.
In addition to, what I just kind of went into detail on, we're continuing to kind of figure out if we can get an affordable housing project built here with the funds that we've been allotted. So that search continues in diligence. And so I'll leave it up to Corey to kind of fill in the gaps because I just left a lot of gaps there.
I can work with that.
But teed it up for you though, right?
Yep.
We're also processing some development code amendments that you guys are aware of, the temporary use permit restriction in terms of Cascade Avenue that Matt's processing, going to Planning Commission next week. And then the storage unit requirements are going to go to Planning Commission next week. The outdoor lighting ordinance is kind of lagging a little bit behind because I'm finding it's taking a little bit more research on my part to kind of educate myself on a lot of new technology and what other communities are doing, and also balancing it with some of the requirements if we would go forward with the dark sky certification, to make sure I understand what that's committing the city to and it's achievable administrative wise. We want to, of course, we want to do the best we can, but we also want to make sure it's an ordinance that is relatively easy to enforce and administer. So we're factoring that in. But I'm learning a lot, and it's still high on the list, and probably take it to Planning Commission in May for their review. Working also with the Astronomy Club, and so that's continuing forward. We're still reviewing a lot of development applications. We have a couple projects over in the Three Peaks Industrial Subdivision that have come forward for industrial type projects. The elementary school is continuing to go forward. We have a couple of temporary use permits for food cart lots in downtown. So those are continuing to be popular. And then just working to get Jacob up to speed on code enforcement. We've asked him to kind of assess what our ordinances for code enforcement say now, and what kind of changes he thinks that he would recommend to make his job more efficient and easier to administer. So that'll probably include some municipal code changes coming your way in the near future. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
I had a friend on LinkedIn who sells equipment to fire departments, and he had posted an article about in the the EMS world about lighting and excessive lighting on vehicles, on emergency vehicles, and ambulances and stuff where they're, some people are finding that it's too much lighting and it's blinding to other drivers and it's distracting from, the people working on the ground, and it kind of draws your attention to like the vehicle itself and not the activity around it, and it was like, that really dovetailed into the presentation that the high school students gave about how more lighting isn't necessarily better, better quality lighting. They kind of were showing that same thing. So I thought that was a really interesting crossover there. It kind of, shored up what they were showing us in their presentation. So I'd share that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did you have anything? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Paul?
We're not done with winter yet.
Apparently not.
We'll be saying that till June. Just a couple quick updates. Pine Street multi-use path, we were looking to get paving this Friday. Obviously, that got pushed out to next week. We're looking forward to that. Our campground playground project, the repurposing of the old Village Green playground equipment, will be open for Easter. The kids will have fun with that. We got our East Portal Master Plan RFP advertised. Proposals are due back on the 28th. We got our grant application in for the Elm Street multi-use path, and that, using current North Pine Street prices, came in at about just a little under $300,000. We got the well 4 ribbon cutting on May 5th. We have the solar project. All the material has been delivered. It's actually on site and they're ready to go. They're thinking they're going to be starting somewhere around the end of the month or early May. They're still waiting on final permitting. And then our wildfire mitigation plan is getting close to being finalized. We got draft priority recommendations from the consultant. We got implementation strategies with that. That's potentially going to get started this spring. So we're not sure that we're going to be able to go out and get contracts in place, but we can at least get some of the work done with our crews in the highest priority spot. So that's all I have.
That's a lot. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I already asked him my dingo question. Did you see the dingo in the bills? He can explain what a
You
dingo.
might get a second chance to see it in the budget.
Okay. We might need a new dingo or another one.
We might need a dingo. We've been renting a dingo.
Oh, okay.
It's a world's greatest wheelbarrow. It's on tracks, fits between, 3-foot gate posts.
Nice.
Get it in tight spots. Yeah, you can trench with it. You can move stuff with it. I mean, yeah.
So she's speaking your language over here.
Auger with it, and yep.
I have a question about the Elm Street path.
Yeah.
The price, does that include doesn't there have to be a pedestrian bridge?
It includes the pedestrian bridge, does not include lighting.
Okay.
So the pedestrian bridge itself was about $90,000.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. Sounds like a lot, but it sounds good. Anything else? Anybody else? All right, thanks, Paul.
Okay.
So now Corey's all teed up.
Yeah, I'm just looking at dingoes. Paul's right. That's a versatile tool. So just expanding on a couple things that you heard Scott and Paul mention. So just real briefly on the affordable housing piece, we did meet with a property owner earlier today, and we're gonna have a follow-up meeting next week. We were just doing due diligence, trying to see if there's a potential partnership. So we're bringing a affordable housing developer into that conversation, very preliminary, and to some extent also want to be mindful of just not putting anything out there publicly at this stage. But we're working on that. If this doesn't seem to get traction, we might need to get even more creative in terms of reaching out to property owners and seeing if there's a willing seller to accommodate a workforce housing multifamily rental project. I mean, we're going to need at least 1.5, probably more like 2 acres to accommodate that. So anyway, we're working on that. The other piece that we just don't fully have clarity on, and I think we should get it in the next couple months. It's not urgent necessarily, but just from the county's perspective with the ARPA funds that they set aside, we haven't formalized a grant agreement yet, but as you'll recall, they reserve those funds. So I think, we've got a good couple months to continue to work through that. But if we keep running into roadblocks, I think we need to just keep being creative and thinking outside of the box with ways to potentially get a property owner on board, because that's the issue at this point. So anyway, more to come on that, hopefully. The East Portal property and the mobility hub master planning. So we're strategically putting out the RFP to get consultants to propose and prep a contract to begin that work, even though you all haven't yet made a motion to purchase the land yet. So our goal is to have those at the same meeting and basically save ourselves, 4 to 6 weeks potentially, or hopefully not more than that, but some time, so that we can get going on that design, even preliminarily, right when we have the agreement executed. And at that point, we have site control, and that satisfies ODOT's requirements for the grant. And then that allows us to not work too fast, but work speedily, if that's a word, quickly, over the summer, so that we can be in a position by the fall to have a concept and cost estimate to apply for actual construction dollars in future rounds of STIF funding. So there's a method to that thought process there. Those are the main 2 things that I just wanted to provide a little more context on. Otherwise, as Joe said, working on a lot of budget stuff, and really T-minus 6 weeks on that, even less in terms of putting the proposed budget document out. And then, as Carrie mentioned as well, a lot of coordination, and I think a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of partnerships, a lot of excitement heading into this summer, feeling safe and kind of towards a more normal summer for the first time in a couple years or a few years. So just, it's exciting on that front as well. So yeah, agreed. So any questions or comments?
I had a question about the portal process, because the idea is to have ODOT purchase back what should be there right away. Where in that process would that occur?
So we're having a meeting next Thursday morning, I want to say it is, with ODOT to touch base on a variety of projects, ones that you're familiar with, Roundabout, East Portal in particular, but others as well, just to strategize on that. We've talked sort of at a high level about it, but not with any real detail. It is still a little bit of, for lack of a better expression, kind of cat and mouse in terms of, appraisal and process, and, they don't really need the land, but it'd be cleaner if they had the land, and, just those types of things. But they do want to bring that to a resolution, and we are excited that we have their attention, but we've earned their attention over the last 3.5+ years of investing in getting design going and following through, and having the community on board and council and staff, and a lot of effort. So to be determined, but I think our hope is to address that sooner than later. So realistically speaking, sometime this summer, I would think.
Okay.
I mean, that might be generous given state timeline, but summer, fall, I would hope.
Warmer weather is what he's saying.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else? You got anything?
No, other than the Board of County Commissioners and the Bend City Council news release that was forwarded to all of you, really did a nice job of encapsulating what happened. And at some point between now and July, we will need to appoint a council member to serve on that board. And more discussion will come from that, I'm sure. And then just the DMO, what Corey and Carrie haven't told you is that there's a lot of reading and research that's been going on, so we're not operating in a vacuum. We're looking at best practices from bylaws to committee makeup to budgets of newly formed and well-established organizations. And so we're getting to the point where it's exciting. We want to hurry up and rush into it, but I'd settle for just hurrying up. And we have a good group working on it, and Carrie's done a wonderful job with gathering all the information. Budget book, Joe, it's going to be hard to beat last year's, so I have very high expectations. It was well done, easy to read.
Oh.
Oh, there you go, 3D.
Hey.
3D.
It's gotta be B++.
And I did have a question, but I didn't know who to address it to. The electric charging stations, where are we with the library?
They're en route. And so we're hoping springtime, which that doesn't mean July or August based on Paul's weather schedule, winter weather schedule. That means like May. So yeah, hopefully by the end of next month, they'll be installed, right? That's the goal.
They're running power, beginning of May. So
Nice.
And it's, we're partnering with them, but they're installing the equipment and whatnot.
There's 4?
I just read my note and I went, no, I didn't want to thank you for a COLA, but I wanted to thank you for being forward thinking to address the cost of living increase for staff when we did, 5 months ago? I think it was a very astute move on your part, and I wish I could get one. So, way to take care of your staff. Thank you.
That's all, okay.
5% of nothing's still nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
Whatever percentage. All right, Mayor and Councilor Business. Gary, are you with us? Would you like to go first?
Oh, did I jump in? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't really have much of anything. I am fading, so I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
And take a nap. Sorry.
Just get better. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
All right, bye. Did you do all your stuff?
I did, yeah.
She's done.
I'm in a rush, I said.
I made all the comments I planned to make.
Okay.
I attended half of the COIC meeting last week. I had conflict for part of it, so I can't speak to everything. I did see that in the notes that Janelle Rule was leaving COIC.
No.
She's
Yeah.
working on a master's degree, I guess. So I guess the timing with her part of the vision process was well timed. And I did attend the Forest Service open house on Monday. And I think the city-related things of note were that I think this week's opened up the front doors again, I think for the first time in 2 years. So even though they kind of had like a little window you could go to for permits and stuff like that, now you can actually go inside and just a little bit of normalcy back there. A lot of the employees are going back to work, at least part-time, in the office. So they did share some of the designs for their new building, not the warehouse that they're building this year, but the main district office. And so they're excited about that because it's getting, after 15 years, closer and closer to reality. And I think somebody in the audience had brought up concern over wildfire especially close to town, whether it was from, warming fires or dispersed camping or people going out at midnight and just getting around a campfire and a couple beers or something. And the Forest Service did say that in the last few years, they have been making it a policy to implement fire restrictions a couple weeks earlier than they had in the past, just to try to get ahead of that a little bit. They were finding that there seemed to be a few weeks of adjustment or people kind of understanding that the rules had changed, no fires and stuff like that. And so they felt they're trying to push that up to buy some time. So that was encouraging that they were doing that at least. So, but I think that was it, at least for, city specific or adjacent topics.
What kind of crowd did they have?
Oh, it was packed. There was probably like 60 visitors or attendees and, 10 or 15 Forest Service and cooperator people there who were presenting. And
That's one or two more than attend city council meetings.
yeah,
Yeah, one or two. Yeah.
no, it was good. It was really well attended, and they did a good job. They had a lot of different, speakers from different departments. So I think everybody was just happy to be in a room together and hear what was going on. So
Nice. All right,
that's it.
thanks. I'm last. I don't have any real updates, although I'm excited about some of those dates that you gave us. I will be there at the Arbor Day with the kids. I think that's a really good place for me to be. I want to help celebrate the ribbon cutting at Well 4, so I'll be there too. If you wouldn't mind sending me a couple of calendar invites for those, that'd be great. And obviously, all the other dates, I think that are all mandatory for me anyway, so I'll probably be there. And I really like the idea of the celebration in Creekside Park, so thank you so much for getting that together. I just think it's important for us to be out there and in public and available just for informal discussion. So other than that, that's all I've got. And we're done. Meeting adjourned. We have checks to sign, correct?